According to the Center for Migration Studies and the Migration Policy Institute, a lot of African countries, particularly Nigeria, have the most number of immigrants that are educated. So they looked at 10 different countries, and Nigeria is actually one of the 10. I'll put a link in the video description below so you can take a look at that for yourself. So you have a lot of Nigerians and Ghanaians and the South Africans who are traveling abroad, and most of them, when they travel abroad, they are very, very educated. In fact, they're one of the most educated, at least Nigeria in particular, is the top 10 in the US, and they've acquired this type of skills that makes them be able to qualify for certain positions. What that does back home is that it divides a bit of classism, and I'll be describing some of the disadvantages of being overeducated. First and foremost, education prevents thinking outside of the box. The whole idea of being educated is because we want people to think in a particular way. By thinking in a particular way, your logic, your steps, they're all linear. And it prevents people, education that is, prevents people from thinking outside of that box. Educated people can follow rules, they can follow instructions, they can do things a particular way, they can do things a certain way. And that's important when you're in a manufacturing job or you're in a process-oriented job. So when people go and get educated, the formal education, the most beneficial, the most advantageous reason why they do that is so that they can think in a particular way. And most people consider education as a signal to employers that, oh wow, this person has a PhD. And a PhD, you have to be committed to it. This just signals that you're committed and you can get a particular thing done. Or even if it's an engineering degree, whatever the degree may be, that academic degree is just to follow a process. And it was kind of at the end of the 20th century was when a lot of that came out, where we have the industrialization era and the post-industrial era. If you try to think outside the box, you'll be shocked that you might have to be sacked or fired or let go, because that's not the point of building whatever it is the company is trying to build. So back to my point about education prevents thinking outside the box. Another thing not thinking outside the box does is that we end up avoiding talking to people who do not think like we do, who do not look like we do, who do not believe in what we believe, because hey, they don't have my value system. Those guys are illiterate, they're not educated. Why am I even wasting my time with you? The military thinks they are a bit better than others. This happened in Nigeria back in the 80s and 90s, whereby they refer to civilians as bloody civilians, because the military are those educated in the military way and they're better than those who have not been. Education also gives you kind of a false sense, basically a sense of false worth. You feel like, oh, I'm important. It just makes you look down on people who don't have the qualifications that you do and who don't have the beliefs that you do. This is something that's very common in religion, where some religious people say they are better than others because only them can talk to God. Because of having that particular education and that particular belief, it creates a lot of rot in society, it creates contention, and it just makes it difficult for people to be able to get along or have any form of unity. Academic careers actually, or professional careers, they tend to be overcrowded. While there are some that are less overcrowded, but those that are overcrowded, many people are still trying to go in there and say, well, oh wow, I want to be a medical this because everybody is trying to be medical. Now, I'm not saying the medical field is overcrowded, but there are certain fields whereby people are just going in, and there are many, many students. You wonder, like, why are these people doing that? Because they've been told by their parents or by their dad or their mom or whoever that this is what we do in our family. My family, they've always been pastor. My father was a pastor. My grandfather was a pastor. My great-grandfather was a pastor. So you have to be a pastor. A lot of people who are following the formal education end up living their lives without purpose. They end up living their life without being fulfilled. Or they end up doing things whereby they're like, oh, why am I doing this? They find out much later in life that they're in the wrong field. And they may not even be happy doing what they're doing. And that's one of the side effects of the formal education. Formal education systems have a lot of people who are not happy, and they are just doing what they're doing just to get paid. So people end up living without finding the true calling in life or the true purpose in life. Particularly in Africa, those who are educated are considered elitist. Even in other parts of the world, you have the issue of elitism or the issue of egalitarianism, where people think I'm better than you because I'm educated than you. And you have different classes and social classes. Even in places like India, by the way, India and China is one of the top 10 based on the study I cited earlier from the Center for Migration Studies and the Migration Policy Institute. So if you look at back to Nigeria, India is a place where you have a lot of classism and classism, and it's just really kind of interesting when you start to look at and look at these issues and what's the root cause. Part of it is because of education. I'm more educated than you are, you're not educated. I went to this school, you went to that school. This school is better than that school. Or my religion is better than your religion. And what that does is it causes division in society. It prevents unity.
BattaBox.